Here we are on YouTube. Feed it out. That and record. Hello and welcome to the Hawkeye Hotspot podcast here on hawkfanatic.com. It is Thursday, September the 28th, a little after 9 a.m. Central Time. Rob Howe, joined by Scott Docterman from The Athletic. Scott, people are pissed. People are mad. That's what I hear anyway. I've tried to avoid as much of it as I can. I know you're more entrenched in that in your job description compared to mine. You have to handle it more than I do. And I'm sure it's not been fun.
No, it's been we're like returning back to last year and the end of 2021 and 2016 for good measure and 2012. It's the same old. And
I just want to know, are you asking tough questions? And
well,
people want to know if you're asking tough questions.
You know what, Rob? That's why I have the tough questions folder.
Okay. Is that filled with tough questions?
No. Just exactly like people think, right? No, it's 2023 edition, but
we need to fill that thing. People, yes. Start sending your tough questions in.
I need to kill some dead trees and put it in there. The reason why it's empty is because it's 2023 and it's all digital these days.
That's
right. I've got. I'll show you
the PDF version of the tough question folder.
Here's the 2022 version.
I think we can recycle a lot of those.
Yeah, right. I can just pull off a bunch of them and then it'll
from 2012 and 14.
Yeah,
just pull out those tough question folders.
Yeah, just change the names from Ken O'Keefe and Greg Davis and Brian Ferentz. Season 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. 6, of course. So yes, it's been this week has been a year, no question. And but you know what? I kind of get it. In fact, I do get it. I get the frustration. It's not just a small part of the fan base that's agitated and mad because they lost or anything like that. Because that's you're going to lose games, and Penn State's a good team, so I'm not going to get on that. But when it's the same old situation every year, and it doesn't matter, the faces change, who's running the offense changes on the field. The line is supposed to be better, they're more mature, or we got new wide receivers and a quarterback who won a championship, and yet the game plan seems the same, the scheme's the same, and unfortunately for Iowa, the offensive results are the same. I get that people have reached their fill of anger and vitriol, and that it's close to a tipping point, Rob. This is where they got to really be concerned. The next stage isn't more anger, it's apathy. And when they get to that level, we saw it with basketball. And it has been a really difficult climb to get back to. It's not back to what it was 25 years ago, and it may not ever be. But with football, you really can't do that because that pays the bills for everything. So anyway, I'll start my rant right now. But I do think right now that they are close to a tipping point regarding the offensive production of turning people from being fans to apathetic bystanders.
Yeah, we're 30 games into this now? If you go from the start of 2021, we're 30 games in. I mean, that's a lot of games to watch an offense, and it hasn't been 30 games of ineptness. There have been good moments on offense. Last year at Purdue, I thought was a really good plan and good execution, especially under I know people were pissed at that, but under the, weather circumstances, it made complete sense. And you and I have talked about that. There are games where it goes well. It's just that sometimes, man, when it looks like it did on Saturday, it's excruciating. I think they got a first down with like 11 minutes left in the first quarter, and then they didn't get another one, I think, until Deacon Hill came in. Is that right?
Yeah, they had 2 in the first quarter and 2 late in the game.
And that's what, 6 3-and-outs or 7 in a row. And then I think it was 6 in a row. Then there was the strip sack on McNamara. I think that was Chop Robinson that got him on that one and beat Mason Richmond again. And then there was another 3-and-out. And then I think Deacon Hill came in. And I think he may have gone through. So whatever it was just, I mean, as bad as you could, imagine an Iowa offense looking, it looked like that Saturday. That was when nothing is working. And unfortunately for Iowa, Scott, too often not enough works. Yeah. It's not always as bad as it was Saturday, but there's just, I think if you look at if you polled people outside of the program, what their confidence level is in Iowa's offense right now, it's 0. I mean, to win a game, if you ask fans, can this offense win you a game against a decent team? I don't think people would buy into that. And they have evidence that it's not going to happen. And it could still happen, but at this point, it's definitely show me time.
Yeah, right. If it's 21-17, let's say that they need a touchdown and there's 5 minutes to go. They got the ball in their own 25 with 5 minutes to go. Enough time to move down the field and score, even really to fully implement most of your offense. Do fans believe, or even bystanders and reporters believe, they can go 75 yards in 5 minutes to score a game-winning touchdown? Absolutely not. There's just nothing here against a decent team that makes you think, they could go down and do that, whether it's against Iowa State or Penn State or who knows, even Michigan State. They've got to prove this. And I don't know that they can at this point because it just looks broken. They make offense look so hard. And then you look around the sport and everybody else makes it look so easy. That just, they throw the ball here. And, there's no quick passing game. 14 catches by wide receivers through 4 games. How are you in God's green earth supposed to bring people in? Why would anybody want to come here? I mean, at least with Caleb Brown, when he came, that was when the 25 points per game thing was a part of it. And Seth Anderson wanted to take that big jump. And you could always sell those people by saying, hey, we've been really struggling at wide receiver. You're a guy that can really come in and help us out. But if you're not going to get them the ball or even attempt it or scheme it, why would anybody want to come here? I mean, you're looking at in-state walk-on type players that are the only ones that are going to want to come to Iowa in the future if something doesn't radically change here. And so you're going to hurt your recruiting. And as I wrote the other day, the top 3 teams in the country in total offense are all in the Pac-12 coming to the Big Ten: Oregon, Washington, and USC. And then 4 others in the Big Ten: Penn State, Ohio State, Maryland, and then UCLA. So they're coming in too. They're all in the top 34. And I know that this team's built a certain way: complementary football, defense first, all that stuff. That's not going to matter. You're going to have to try to keep up. You're not going to be able to hold everybody to 7 points or less. And as we saw last year, that isn't even always a guarantee. So they're going to have to do something different. And if Kirk can't change this, it's going to be hard for anybody to fans to even want him back. And that's going to, and you hate to see that, but at some point you've got to make a change. You have to, or you die. And then it becomes the end of the Fry era, and nobody wants to see that.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a crossroads. I don't know if that's the right way to frame it, but it just feels like it. I don't know if Brian Ferentz can make this work in conjunction with his dad. If this setup is working, I don't know if it's Kirk holding him back by his philosophy, if Brian would open things up or change what Iowa is doing, given 100% control over that, or even 90%, we won't know because this is the setup. It's Kirk Ferentz's philosophy and approach. And Ken O'Keefe was the most hated man in Iowa football when he was here. Greg Davis was, dragged through the coals when he was here. And now Brian Ferentz. And this one's different, Scott, because he's the head coach's son, which just creates a dynamic and has made this thing go viral. It's national. When Iowa performs like it did Saturday at State College, everybody's laughing at it.
Right. And when you're looking around Iowa at the same time and you see this great game on Ohio State, Notre Dame, and you see before it with Colorado and Oregon, although Colorado didn't play well, but they were also, they've been really energized with a new staff and new players and all that. And then you look at Iowa, 31-0, 76 total yards. They're outplayed 97-33 when they give up more than 46 minutes or more than 45 minutes, almost 46 minutes of time of possession. You get outgained by 300 plus yards. And then you start talking about, and this is where Kirk has to be careful. And I don't think he gets it. I just don't. That it's a team game and it's a team loss. Yes, the defense didn't play great at times. And I'll say that the drive to open the third quarter was really what broke the back of the team. But at the same time, it's uneven. You could complain about defense, but they hold them to a much higher standard of performance than they do the offense. And
or
why?
Special teams.
Yeah, or special teams. It's like if they shank a punt, he'll talk about it in the post game. Or if they miss a tackle, or if they give up a big play, it's like, yeah, well, we didn't do this, or we didn't get off the field when we needed to, or whatever. How about getting more than 1-3, than one first down in the game? That's to me what you've got to strive for, because when you play that way and you play really, really well, one play will get you beat. That was kind of the problem with Marty Schottenheimer all those years in the NFL, that he played so well and they were so tight, close to the vest, that one bad play or one good play from the other team, boom, gets you beat. And Kirk's that way anyway, but when you can't do anything offensively, you're just going to – I think Iowa fans have finally reached the end. And I think he doesn't want to admit it, but he's got to make a change. He's got to make a change at coordinator. Even if it's not Brian's fault, it's Brian's fault, or it's his own fault. It's one of the two. He either needs to completely get out of the way and only make decisions on 4th down and 1, and that's it, and or he's got to say, Brian, you're out, and John Budmeyer, you're calling plays. Because if this happens again, fans won't show up, and they'll protest.
And if John Budmeyer's made the offensive coordinator or co-offensive coordinator, he will be the most hated man in Iowa football, because Kirk has to change this philosophy and fundamentally, and just how I don't even think it needs to be wholesale changes, Scott. Just adjust and modernize what you're doing. Look at Kansas State. Look at North Dakota State. Look at schools that still – Minnesota at times, although Minnesota's a bad example after what they did on Saturday. But you can still be a power football team, but run concepts that are modernized and are less predictable and put the defense on its heels. And Iowa still hasn't figured out how to do that. And it's 25 years of the same head coach, and that stuff worked 20 years ago. It certainly worked 20 years ago, but it's not working now. And I don't know if he's capable of changing that. I mean, it'd be great if he did. It almost feels like it's a tug of war, Scott, of him wanting to prove that what he does works to the people who doubt him.
Yeah. He's two of his greatest traits as a head coach, and why he's a Hall of Fame coach, in my opinion, is that he's incredibly loyal and he's stubborn in many of the right ways. However, those are also detriments in why he's a Hall of Fame coach, but not considered a generational coach. Because had he modernized his offense and done some of those things over time, I think that Kirk Ferentz might be viewed as maybe like Bill Snyder or some of the other, maybe south of Nick Saban, but everybody else is too. But I mean, considered a no-brainer. He would have won more games, certainly. But when you look at, like, to me, I think there's two areas that I look at most of all. One is running quarterback, and the fact that they do not in any way, shape, or form want anybody that can run the football at that position. It's all passing. It's like 1970s NFL. No, we don't want Fran Tarkenton here. He's a scrambler. You're supposed to stay in the pocket and throw. Well, when you look back at Beathard in 2015, he, before sacks, he ran for 450 yards. He ran for 34 first downs as a quarterback. The last 3+ years, from the 3 years plus the first 4 games this year, quarterbacks ran for 31, and that includes sneaks and with Petrus. So what are you doing? That's where you get, when it's 3rd and 7 and things break down, take off. McNamara was able to do that a little bit the other day. He's still limping. And then the other area in this one speaks to the program at large and all the systemic issues that has dealt with it. And that is the wide receivers. When you look at the numbers of attrition over, 24, I think I counted it up, 24 receivers that they've recruited over the last 10 years through the 2022 class, and only 4 ended up, with finishing with their eligibility at Iowa. Now, some as a wide receivers. Now, some flipped to defense. Some, like Jay Shield had to medically retire. But they've misidentified, and then they've ruined receivers. And at this point, when you look at even just what's happened the last couple of years, in 2019, Rob, the receiving core caught 169 balls, which was the tied for the most in program history. Last year, it was 76, which was the fewest for the receiving group since 82. Now they've caught 14 through 4 games. And then you start to look at things like Charlie Jones, who, caught 21 passes. And remember, everybody thought, tried to justify it saying, well, he's just a rotational guy. Oh, he only went and led the country in 110 catches. And the problem for Iowa and the way that their bounce back will be is, yeah, but we beat Purdue last year. That shouldn't have anything to do with it. It should be utilizing the players you have. And, right now, 33% of their targets have been to wide receivers. That's by far the lowest in the country. 67% is the median. So it's just, those are the issues I see right away, and they're really obvious. And how in God's green earth are you supposed to recruit receivers in the portal or even freshman receivers when you have those kind of numbers?
Looks like Purdue's found a way to use Tyrone Tracy Jr.
Yeah.
So, and that's the thing you wonder, can, with guys like Caleb Brown, who maybe doesn't fit the prototypical wide receiver mold. He's a smaller guy. He played running back in high school, but and Kirk talked about this on Tuesday, putting the players in the best positions to succeed. And Iowa just is not doing that on the offensive side of the football. I asked guys that are much smarter than me, and you're much smarter than me when it comes to football and, schematics and understanding those parts of the game. I asked Jovan Johnson, Jordan Canzeri. They both landed on the receivers, Scott. They both were like, you gotta, against Penn State, they're daring you. They're playing one-on-one coverage, man. And you can't beat your guy? Or are you beating your guy and the quarterback's not getting you the ball? What's going on there? It's hard to tell on TV replay. I tried to watch on the replay, but it's just hard. They stay on the ball, so it's hard to see what's really going on downfield with the receivers. But those guys both pointed that out. And then they also said, surprised by lack of development on the offensive line. This is a year where you figure Iowa would be rock solid on the offensive line. They go through these patches, Scott, where they're replacing and young and they've got veteran guys on the offensive line now. All these guys have experience. There's no, with the exception maybe of Jennings Dunker, but he's 4 games into this and he played guard. I mean, he's played before. That's surprising to me. It's not been good. It hasn't been good when it's had to be good. Fortunately for Iowa, it played 3 very winnable games in the non-conference.
Yeah. And I don't want to give them any passes because I don't think they've earned it. Penn State is really, really good, especially defensively. And this was a game where I looked at them as, unless there was a pick six or something to that effect, that the upper ceiling for them, even if with a good day, was maybe 3 scoring drives, because they're elite at all 3 levels. They may be a playoff team, so okay, but I think people understand that, that maybe it was going to be a tough game, and it has been in the past. However, when you look at just the whole picture, that's where the problem lies, and that there is no benefit of the doubt because they exhausted it a couple of years ago. When in 2021, when they started 6-0, and the offense looked not real good, but you thought maybe they get better, and it didn't. It got worse, and then they scraped and clawed and still got to the division title, got crushed in the Big Ten championship, and you thought, okay, on the big stage you got smoked. What are you going to do differently now? And well, what we're going to do is we're going to move Brian to the quarterbacks, coaching, and that's what started this. Are you kidding me? And then things got so much worse last year. And then whether it's Kirk trying to buy it, trying to sell a product that isn't there, he's saying, oh yeah, this year the maturity along the line, they're going to be better. Well, the fact is that when you look at the line, there's no first rounder here. There's no Tristan Wirfs or Alec Jackson, would have been a draft pick had some things not materialize at Iowa. But, he's a starting left tackle in the NFL. Let's put it that way. But, Tyler Linderbaum, there's none of those. Mason Richmond's probably a guard at the next level, that sort of thing. So they're dealing with what they can deal with, but they should be better. But that part, we can all see and agree with and discuss the varying degrees of how good they're going to be. However, the philosophy, the schematics, trying to get the ball to the wide receiver. I mean, the 11 personnel is typically the 3 receiver set that most college football uses these days. Iowa's only employed it 57 times over 4 games. And then you look at tight end, 76 of their plays have come with 2 tight ends on the field. Now, when you had Lachey in all, okay, I got to buy that. You don't have Lachey anymore. And yet the other night, they ran a lot of 2 and 3 tight end sets. And it's like, what are you doing here?
Is that to protect the offensive line?
They're not using them to protect the offensive line. That's the problem.
Yeah.
They're still running routes with them. They're not, they're still arrogant in their protection, where they're still saying, Mason Richmond, you block Chop Robinson. That's not a winning strategy. We've seen that before when they've had overmatched tackles go against great pass rushers and still not provide a chip or a double team or anything. It's like, no, you're going to block him because that's the way we do things. And it's the errors are so obvious, and with blinking lights and strobe lights, it's like, God, why don't you see this? And yet, I don't know, and I don't know what you thought, Rob, watching the body language this week of the players, Nico in particular, and Cade especially. Not good, not happy at all. And, is some of it their own fault? Yeah. But that doesn't mean that that's all their fault per se. That there's a lot that the offense could do to put them in a better position to succeed. And whether it's the head coach or the offensive coordinator not doing it, one or the other is the case.
Not breaking any news, but I've heard from some folks that are in the wide receiver room that aren't happy with how things have gone, just in terms of their involvement in the offense. And I'm not sure why they aren't leaning more on the receivers, and maybe that's the path forward here. And we see that this week against a team that's going to be a little less or a little more giving than what Penn State was. But talk about the quarterback a little bit here, Scott. I think we should. He was brought in, as we both wrote last week, to win and play well in games like Saturday night at Penn State. He did not play well. And there's context and there's nuance, and is he being put in position to succeed? And is he making the plays? Is he executing? Are the right plays being called? Those are tough questions to answer because we're not in the meeting rooms. We're not in the huddles. We don't know exactly what's going on. But if you just look at it from a raw numbers perspective, Spencer Petras had better numbers through 4 weeks last year than what McNamara has this year. And that's with a game at Penn State, so there's context there. Petras opened against Rutgers last year in the Big Ten. That was his fourth game. But then Spencer came out and was decent against Michigan. He wasn't the reason they lost that game to Michigan. He did have, he was sacked 4 times, I think, and had a turnover in that game. But he played better in that game than Cade did the other night, for sure. Yeah. And again, context, what's going on around them, how's the offense playing? You had Laporta and Lachey last year. That's a difference. So obviously there's personnel differences here, but I just think even if you throw the numbers out and McNamara has had better numbers than Spencer at this point in the season, I don't think, for whatever reason, I don't know how much of it is his fault, he has not lived up to expectations to this point in the season.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And I think he feels that, and there's an obvious disconnect between him and Brian. Because the numbers wouldn't be this bad. You see a lot of. Do you notice that when he comes to the sideline, Scott? I sorry to interrupt, but that there seems to be like, and I think that's pretty normal, but confusion. When he comes to the sideline about what's being run, and it seems like he and Brian oftentimes, and maybe that's just natural with the offensive coordinator and the quarterback. It seems like it's happening, and maybe it's magnified because of the struggles. But it seems like there's a lot of that going on when he gets back to the sideline. What was that? What did you see? This and that. And I get that, but as you said, to agree with your point of a disconnect, it doesn't seem like they're on the same page. No, they're not. It's pretty obvious. And when you look at the way the quarterback has played, he has not played well at all. And especially the last 2 weeks where he's completed less than 30% of his passes. That's, you can't win anything that way, So I think in some ways, this is where they're at a real crossroads, Rob. Now, they could go out and beat the daylights out of Michigan State, because Michigan State, you want to talk about turmoil. They're full of more turmoil than any other program. They haven't been on the road. They're coming to Kinnick at night. All those things line up for Iowa. But if this offense continues to struggle, Rob, that kind of passion turns the opposite way. And it's going to be booing, and it's going to be anger, and it's going to create a lot more frustration. And as a head coach, Kirk Ferentz needs to get a grip on this and understand, what is the commonality here? Why has our offense struggled all these years? Well, me and the play caller. And is he putting the right play structure together? Is he not only calling the right plays, that one's decided by Wednesday practically, but is he putting the right coordination together? Is he trying to maximize the ability of the players around him? And how much is he listening to a veteran quarterback who really came in with a lot of equity and has built upon that equity here? His performance has not equaled that equity, but the players seem to still be rallying around him. That disconnect could grow and really bastardize and become players versus coaches. And if that happens, yeah, we could see 2006 all over again very, very, very quickly.
Yeah, no doubt. It's a critical point, and 2 winnable games the next 2 weeks, which I will be favored. And I think it's more than just winning, though, Scott. I think it's showing progress and showing that you're capable of putting together usable offense. And that's really what I think people are going to be focused on the next 2 weeks. I know Kirk is focused on winning, and that is the most important thing. You have to win the football game. You play to win the game. Yeah. I get that. But there also needs to be some signs that you can win at Wisconsin. And are you advancing your offense to the point where you can go into Madison and make enough plays offensively to win that game. Switching to defense, I don't. It's not as good as it was last year. I'm not breaking any news there. But with what it lost, there should have been expected growing pains. I think so far this year, the focus, or at least what is being looked at, is a lack of a pass rush. And we heard early in the season that was based on the offenses they were playing, quick throw offenses, and then a lack of takeaways, which probably is connected to a lack of a pass rush, right? When quarterbacks have a lot of time, it's much harder for defensive backs to stay in coverage and pick the ball off. So those two are connected. Linebacker play has been good. I don't get gaga over tackle numbers because those can be misleading. But
when you're
go ahead.
I was going to say, I was sorry to interrupt, but when you're out there on the field for 97 plays, you're going to have a lot of tackles.
Yeah, no doubt. And I would submit that Anthony Hitchens was better the year he had fewer tackles than the year he had a lot of tackles. Right. So keep that in mind as well. So I think this defense will be fine. I think it's going to get better. I think it's going to improve. The pieces are there. But last year, the offense could expect the defense to carry it. It can't this year, at least at this point in the season. And that's where we are.
Yeah. And there again, it like last week, the defense had, for being out there 97 plays, to not have any sacks, interceptions, forced fumbles, pass breakups. That's pretty tough to do. It does show that there's some.
Kid is good. Kid's a good quarterback. He's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, he made some throws that you're like, holy crap. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right. When you have a left tackle who's going to be a top 10 pick.
Yeah, he's good. I mean, he pretty much neutralized Deontay Craig.
Yeah. And then you have, a pretty good front across the board anyway. I don't think their skill players are as good as they were. Not, there's no Barkley there. There's probably no Jahan Dotson there or anything. No Pat Fryermuth at tight end. I think they're good. I think Theo Johnson's good. I think, but Drew Aller, on the other hand, I mean, not to get too far out there, but what is he like a Joe Burrow? I mean, he's still young. He's just a true sophomore, and he took that step forward that he needed to do. And that's what Penn State's really missing. I mean, as great as Trace McSorley was, he wasn't quite the passer. He was more of a runner who could do a lot of different things, which is kind of what Iowa's offense needs right now. But this guy is, you're going to see him on Sundays pretty soon, way it's going 2 years tops. But that said, you're right. The last year you had 37 sacks. This year you have 3. And what are you missing? Well, you're missing a top 15 NFL draft pick and Lucas Van Ness, who they didn't even start. But then, John Wagner and Noah Shannon were a part of that. And they were, whether they were impactful in pass rush situations is debatable, but they allowed other people to be elite. And then Seth Benson was a really good pass rusher. Jack Campbell affected play all over the field, no question. And you're not going to replace him. That's FUBAR to even think that. However, I will say
Moss and DeJean at corner.
Yeah, right. And I think other than one play, Harris has been pretty good. I think Deshaun Lee was pretty good
he got beat on a touchdown the other night, but that throw was ridiculous, and so was the catch. He was in position.
Yeah. So I really don't have a lot of concerns there. In fact, I probably feel better about the secondary today than I did 3 or 4 weeks ago, because I think Lee stepped up to the point of, all right, I think he could play, and maybe even Entringer too, because he's played some. But they're going to have to do something with the pass rush, and whether that's try somebody different, do more loops, more stunts. We say all this, Robin, we know what's going to happen probably Saturday night, where they're going to get 5 sacks, 4 turnovers, a pick 6 or something, and it's like everything's
with
great
base defense.
Yeah, right. They're not going to blitz. They're going to shut them all down. But the one number that I really like about this defense a lot is They're still 7th, Rob, in the country in yards per play allowed at 4.2. That is outstanding defense. And especially after what they had to deal with the other day, that's good stuff. And then finally, I thought Jay Higgins might be a good player. I think he's an exceptional player. I think he's outstanding. Now, late in the game, I know people are saying something, but I'm like, it's rainy, it's cold. You're going against that team, and you're out on the field 90 plus plays. Don't expect him to be out there looking like Micah Parsons or something. He's not Jack Campbell, but he's a dude, man. And I thought Nick Jackson's played well too. I think both of them, tandem wise, they're better than I thought they would be. It's really about getting a pass rush, because once you start disrupting the pass game, that makes the quarterback antsy, and that's where eyes on the quarterback, being in the right position, that's where turnovers take place.
Yeah, no doubt. I noticed Nick's starting to play a little faster, which is a good sign. And he's somebody I think that they can use to help the pass rush. There's often times, I noticed the other night against Penn State, where he's on the weak side and pretty much is eliminated from the play that's being run because they're just staying away from him. He's trying to come across the defense to make a play, and he can't. Those are the types of situations where if they can read those right, they can send him from the weak side and help. But I think there's Phil's still trying to figure out some of the newer personnel and what works. And I have no concerns about the defense. I don't think it's going to be the reason Iowa loses football games going forward. It wasn't the reason Iowa lost the other night. And I still think, you got a new strong safety who's starting to, he's picking it up, but it takes a while. It's going to take a little bit while. So they'll be okay on that side of the ball, Scott. And just some bad luck on special teams. The punt off of Diaz Fernandez was just, Cooper was yelling. He was yelling, get out of the way, or fire, or whatever the hell, poison, whatever you yell when that stuff happens. But 100,000 people, it's hard to hear. And Brandon was just trying to make a play, trying to block the guy.
Yeah, it wasn't as bad as I don't know if you remember 5 years ago with Wisconsin when the ball kind of bounced and hit Sean Byer's leg. This one was just wrong place, wrong time. You're running up the sideline, your back's to the ball. It was 110,000. It was the second biggest crowd they ever had, and it was boisterous despite the rain. And so it's hard to hear, and it was a shanked punt. So it's just bad luck on so many fronts. And that's probably, if you're Iowa, it's those plays that you just kind of, and they muffed a punt too, but then it went right to them. So the first half was to me about more like bad luck than bad play, because, Eric all fumbles is, going down, just
a little bit more, he's down.
Yeah. And if anything else, if he holds on to the ball, they throw 3 incompletions, then they punt, they kick a field goal, and then that's 10-3 at halftime, and you feel like, we're kind of in it. Second half was about getting caught in a Zamboni. I'll give you an example of kind of a metaphor for the weekend. How that trip sucks so many ways, because it's hard to get there. You can't stay in State College because it's $600 a night. So I'm staying in a 2-star in Altoona that recently went from being smoking to non-smoking. And so you could smell it, and it's like stale, gross 1970s cigarettes. On my way back in the rain, 3 a.m., I smoked a skunk. I just blew him up. Oh. And the whole car stunk after that. And it's like, and then I walk into the smell of that stale cigarettes. It's like the stink is like the perfect metaphor for the whole weekend, So that's kind of what the second half was for Iowa.
Stinky.
Yeah. 4 plays in the third quarter, and they ran 32 or whatever it was. So you can't win. You can't win at all that way.
No, you cannot. And that is one that people will remember, like 2017 Wisconsin and other games where Iowa just got dominated. It doesn't happen often, but when it does, it sticks out like a sore thumb, and it certainly did the other night. Good time to take a break here before we move on, and we'll do talk a little bit about this weekend's game against Michigan State, what we see there, and then come back for our picks. I don't think I did very well, but I'll keep you guys in suspense until Scott tells us how we did later in the show. But support for this podcast comes from Systems Unlimited, celebrating 50 years of providing services to people living with disabilities and mental health needs throughout East Central Iowa. A list of their services and upcoming events can be found at sui.org. That is sui.org. Systems Unlimited, over a half century of helping folks in the community and a couple years of helping us on the podcast, and we appreciate all that they do. Let's hear from a few more sponsors, and Scott and I will be back on the other side. All right, reloaded the coffee. We're in good shape here to finish this one and take it home. Scott, Iowa, I think last I looked, 12 and a half point favorite this weekend against visiting Michigan State. First road game of the season for the Spartans. It has not been a good year in East Lansing. Mel Tucker officially fired yesterday on Wednesday, September the 27th. Harlan Barnett is the acting head coach. And the interesting thing, I think it was Nicole Auerbach that I saw tweet this. The Spartan players now have a 30-day window if they want to go into the transfer portal. That can be uneasy. And I know Coach Barnett talked yesterday or Tuesday about, his locker room staying together. And we hear that. And it's a good sign that nobody's, at least to him at this point, has talked about wanting to go. But it's unsettling. It's got to be an unsettling situation. And, the guy that brought them in is gone now. Their position coaches are there. So that helps, obviously, because those are the people that they're close to. But this is a game. This should be a get-right game for Iowa, Scott. The odds makers expect it to go Iowa's way, obviously, with that point spread. They also expect a low-scoring game. Yeah. I think it's 36.5. Go figure. Iowa ranks 105 out of 130 in scoring offense at 21.2, and the Spartans check in at number 92 in scoring offense at 23 points per game. So could see a lot of Torrey Taylor and whoever the Michigan State punter is this week.
Yeah, it's too bad for them. It's not Bryce Behringer. He's now in the NFL. You can see kind of like Pumpalooza and Piscataway last year. It would have been the same way, kick fest at Kinnick, this weekend. But Michigan State's not a very good team. Let's just start with that. A lot of that started even in the offseason when they lost their quarterback and then the awesome receiver that is Keon Coleman when he went to Florida State. When they lost those two, Peyton Thorne and Keon Coleman, that changed the dynamic of Michigan State from being a competitive lower, mid to lower tier bowl type team in the Big Ten to now hanging on and probably not going to a bowl game type of team. They rely heavily on explosive plays on offense, which Iowa is built to defend. They have, two receivers that really can do that. Iowa will have to avoid that, which means also that they stay in the pocket longer, which means more pass rush situations in a loud stadium that's got an anger and vitriol, as we know, because we talked about it for the last hour. Defensively, they've got good athletes. They've got an outstanding linebacker that would fit right in with Iowa. A guy, Cal Halliday, who's if he was wearing black and gold, everybody would love him like they would Josie Jewell type, But this is not a good team. I mean, Carter, their running back, is pretty decent. They have him involved in every aspect of the offense, but they're not very good rushing the ball. They're explosive in the passing game, but the last 2 weeks they've been outscored 72-16 by Washington and Maryland. This is one, and they're a wounded team, obviously. They haven't left the state. They haven't left home. They've been 4 games at home. and coming to Kinnick, you put them down early, and then they'll hit the over, and they'll hit the over and they'll cover by halftime if they want to.
Yeah, and I think if history tells us anything, Scott, I think it's important for Iowa to start quickly on offense, because if it doesn't, the boos you'll be hearing will be said people will say that they're not directed at Kate McNamara, but it doesn't really matter when you're booing the offense. You can't single out who you want to boo at. I'm booing at you, Brian.
Yeah.
I'm booing at you, Kirk. It's booing the offense and the team. And that can be infectious. It really can. It can definitely get in there and make I think at times it got to Spencer Petras. And ultimately you still have to play through that and get out there and execute what you're being told to execute. But I just wonder how much confidence there is. They tell us they're confident, but I wonder how much confidence there is in the plan that they have and in the guys around them. You see it on the field sometimes. You see the frustration, and it's natural. I mean, it's human nature. And Iowa really has to fight through that, because this game kind of sets up like the Nebraska game last year, where Iowa has no business losing this game. But if you allow the other team to hang around, there's an injury, bad play, ball doesn't bounce your way, then you put yourself in position to have a really bad loss.
Yeah, and if that's the case, then all bets are off for this whole season. Everything's at stake at that point. That's why they need to develop some confidence early. And the best possible thing is for the offensive line to pass protect well and for them to hit a big pass early. If they can hit, I know it's like pie in the sky here, but if they could hit a 60-yarder, third pass of the play of the game, and Seth Anderson or especially Caleb Brown would catch, run, score, that could change the mental dynamic of the whole, certainly with the crowd, but also the offense, which needs confidence. I don't see confidence at all. Their body language tells me that, and then the play tells me that. You see frustration with the blocking on the offensive line, especially in the pass game, because Cade was getting murdered the other day. And then that comes down to coaching, and it comes down to scheme, because if you're going to just allow a first rounder to roll around your left tackle, you might want to have somebody there to chip. But I think this is a defense you can score on. It may not be easy to grind on, but you could score on it. And again,
they're going to make you throw.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan State's going to make Iowa throw. They're not going to let Iowa. Maybe Iowa can impose its will and establish the run and then open everything up. But Michigan State's going to make that very hard. They're going to say, "Hey, beat us down the field."
Yeah. And, their consigliere on the sidelines there is Mark D'Antonio. And how many 16, 13 games, one way or the other, did we watch, with those two teams?
Diddle.
Yeah, Sadler up the middle. I wrote about it today, Rob. Yeah.
That needs to be written about whenever these teams play.
Yeah, exactly. God bless his soul, Sadler.
Very sad.
Yeah. But then, he knows, everybody knows. I mean, Harlan Barnett was part of that stuff. And,
yep.
And all you have to do is turn on the tape and say, they're running 13 personnel here. They're going to try to run the ball. Let's load the box, go one-on-one on the outside. They have no faith that they can beat you. And then let them do it. And you know what? The first play of the game should be, Rob, a 60-yard pass. One way or the other. Incomplete. Don't get it intercepted. But throw it. Make sure to say, hey, we're going to be doing this tonight.
Out of 11 personnel.
Out of 11 personnel. And, throw it. I don't care if he's open or not. Don't get him intercepted. That way, you send a message immediately to Michigan State and to your team. We're going to be aggressive. We're going to go down the field. We're going to attack. And you better be prepared for this, because if you want to solo up our guys, we will hit you and we will score on you, because there's no Darquez Denard over there like there once was, and some of the other great defensive backs that Michigan State had over the years.
Yes, no doubt about that. And As Scott said, this is a game where I think you can get the crowd in it early. If you hit something like that, then you kind of set the tone for the game. And I get the 12 personnel, Scott, like you said, when Luke was there and Eric All and Luke Lachey were two of your best offensive weapons. But without Luke, I think you look at the receiver room and say, aren't there three receivers that should be on the field over Steve Stylianos and Addison Estrenga, at least more than they're doing?
Yeah, you're right. Because they still used 2 and 3 tight ends more than they did 3 wide receivers last week. I mean, it's just at some point you've got to say we got to have Ragaini, Vines, Anderson, and Brown in some measurement on the field more than they are. And 11 personnel, if nothing else, and here's the other thing, if nothing else, to spread out the defense. Because when you put them all in a box like that, it's hard to go
out of 11. You can run out of 11.
Teams do all the time.
I know.
Except Iowa. But the only time they run out of 11 is when the quarterback gets sacked. That's pretty much it. But I just it's frustrating as you can tell just to watch that development. And yes, quick passing game. What happened to that? Why can't just there be a one-step throw? Get somebody out there. Run. Have a block and remember. And this is. I'm not looking back fondly on the Greg Davis error because I do not like what I saw schematically there at all. But remember like the one-step swing passes that were like RPO in some respects to Matt Vandenberg from CJ Beathard, where it's just step and throw, and then he'd catch it. And a lot of times he'd get 5 or 6 yards. It was like a pass. Everybody was block and run. They threw. What happened to that? Why can't you do that? Because that might, especially if you're throwing it to somebody like Caleb Brown, he might be able to turn the corner. And he's got, Matt Vandenberg had some good wheels, but Brown has some quickness that they need to exploit. And I don't want to hear that, well, yeah, he's still learning the system. If you're learning the system now going into game 5, this system's too damn hard. Get him out there, play.
Penn State did it, Scott. They ran those quick passes to the left side and had the tight end out there blocking, and it was like a running play. Pick up 5-7 yards, and then they built off of that by using two really good running backs at Penn State too, by the way. That helped them run the ball.
Yeah.
They're giving you different looks. They're hitting you with different combinations, different punches, and you're having trouble keeping up. Iowa, you know where it's going to be, you know what's coming, and you just have to stop it.
Exactly. It's like all you have to do is say, all right, we're going to, they're going to come out with a minimum 1, most likely 2 tight ends. Now that they're running a little more gap and counter, you've got to be a little more disciplined and maybe play 2 gap to some extent up front. But if you can slow that down, we don't care about the outside, because then in 3rd down, that's when they will go to 5 wide once in a while or do some of that stuff. It's very, very easy to defend, predictable to, pretty much. I mean, by formation, you can see what they're trying to do. And, but anyway, I think this is, this is clearly a winnable game though. All the things we've talked about with Iowa, we've talked about before, last year before, countless times last year. But this is one of those games where it could end up like Michigan State in 2020 during the COVID year, where it was 49-7. You had Riley Moss pick 6. You had Charlie Jones, return a punt for a touchdown. You had, just scorching plays, by Tyler Goodson. And it's just, to me, that's where this one could end up very quickly.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's kind of the tonic I think Iowa needs, is to have a breakout game offensively against a Big Ten opponent. But if we're being honest here, Scott, and we said this last week going in, that the Penn State game wouldn't make or break this team. But But I think we were thinking more of a competitive game, at least for a half, 3/4 before Penn State wins it. If that was the case, it's just how Iowa lost last week that has people very, very on edge. But if you take a step back and look at the schedule Iowa has and look at the Big Ten West with 8 games left, and they said it this week, and they should believe it. Everything, their goals are still in play. The Big Ten West is very much in play. Then you get to a 1-game scenario in Indianapolis. Who knows, right? So you come out of Penn State and you look at what happened there, and you're saying, now that you can't expect this team to win, anything significant. But it's not the case when you look at what is left on the schedule. And these next 2 weeks either one would be a very bad loss.
No question. This is really what you could say is this season is all about Iowa. It's not about the opponents the rest of the way. It's about what can Iowa do? How can Iowa improve? What does Iowa make of its season? Well, all those things that we've talked about in offense, they need to revamp. If they can revamp them, there's no reason why they can't run the table.
Here's the question for you, though, Scott. Kirk knows this too. So does he change much, or does he figure – because he said – you just listen to his own words. We do what it takes to win the game. Whatever we feel like is going to do the – so do they take chances offensively on Saturday, knowing that Michigan State's probably not going to score much on its defense? Or do they actually push forward to try to make the improvements that we saw necessary at Penn State? Or does Kirk just play that conservative, we're just going to muck it up and win those 17-13 games?
I think they push the envelope this week, Rob.
Yeah,
I think
you're right.
I think they play more like they did against Western Michigan, which they were a little more aggressive, and part of that is, as we know, and this is the thing that's the most difficult to convey, is you could be that aggressive in the running game if it works.
Yeah.
If you could run for 5 yards a carry, it doesn't matter because you're just blowing them up, and then it looks like you're being aggressive. Whereas if you're getting 2 yards a crack, it looks like you're being conservative. I think in this case, that at least through 3/4, if the game goes as planned, I see them being that way. And then who knows, maybe with 30 seconds left and D'Antonio on the other sidelines, maybe he'll instruct Max White to just barely reach the ball over the goal line. Remember this, MF?
Yeah, hopefully we get some aesthetically pleasing football the next 2 weeks, Scott, on the offensive side, because I think everybody that follows Iowa football really needs that right now. They need to see some signs of life on that side of the ball and I think, like you said, confidence in offensive guys, confidence in each other, confidence in the players and what they're being coached, what they're being asked to do, because we know that game in Madison's, it's early, so you can't just say it's for the West title. But let's face it, as we came into the season, we thought these were the two best teams in the West. Through 4 weeks, they look like the 2 best teams in the West. Either one could stub their toe. Wisconsin plays host to Ohio State, so they've got their Penn State game left, basically. So, but these next 2 weeks, obviously winning is the main goal, but developing and becoming better offensively has to be the micro goal right now. Getting yourself some momentum going into Madison in a few weeks.
Ultimately, it's also how you feel about this team, and this is speaking as much to the fans, the donors, the swarm donors, and the players as well. I mean, winning games is paramount. Of course, nobody wants to remember a close loss. I mean, two of the best games I ever covered, Iowa lost. The 2015 championship game and 2010 Iowa-Wisconsin game, which was phenomenal. Both of them were great games. So what? They lost. And I think that, so winning is number one, but I think also how you feel about the team is how they perform. Nobody wants to go and watch a team win 51-44 in basketball every night and say, well, we play great, outstanding defense. And that's, and we hit a bunch of free throws. Nobody cares about that shit. They want to see the ball go up and down the court. And I think that's the same way here, that people want to see points. They want to see movement. They want to see big plays because that's what you cheer for. So I think if you can,
and you're right. Everywhere around the country, they look at the highlights from Saturday, and everybody's got these explosive, high-powered offenses, and then there's our team,
and then there's Iowa, and we've covered Iowa for so long, and it's been the same way. And it's like, you go to the portal and you pick up all these players, and you still don't use them, and you still, it's like. Yeah, I don't know. We've been at this for a long time, but I think that's part of what they need to have Saturday night is you need your fans to feel good too, because you want them. They support this team, and I know Kirk will use this obviously as us against the world. Only don't listen to the outside noise and stuff, but this is a passionate fan base, and if that passion goes away, watch out. It goes the other way badly, and again, and not to use basketball, you need to view that though. I mean, there used to be split packages for basketball tickets. Everything we're seeing with women's basketball, it used to be annual with men's basketball. And now it's like, hey, what time do you want to show up? We'll tip off a couple minutes after that,
And I think there's a cumulative effect here too, Scott, when it comes to Kirk Ferentz. I mean, he's in his 25th year. So people have that memory bank of 2014 or, the last 2 years. There's that with there's been a snowball effect the last, what I said, 30 games. Mm-hmm. So now we're in that. And that's hard to stop sometimes. But Iowa with these 2 games has a chance to change the narrative, has a chance to show some life, has a chance to inspire some confidence, not only outside of the locker room, but within the locker room, which is much more important.
Sure. Yeah. Because, as much as we're talking and the fans and stuff, it's all about how they perform on the field. And if they go out and win games and they celebrate their own way, they'll be happy. But they also want to play well. You think about any of the receivers or a basketball player. If a basketball player only gets plays 10 minutes, gets one shot and misses, how does he feel after the end of the game? We won. Yeah, I'm glad we won, but I didn't play very well or play very much. And wide receiver, I didn't even get a target, or I got one and it was a throwaway, or I got one catch for 5 yards. I mean, that's just not how you engage your team and get them energized. You want the ball with a chance to do something with it. That's why they're here. And I don't think it continues the same path it has been on, but if it doesn't get on a much higher trajectory very soon, you could have some discontent that, at the end of the season, come December, the portal might fill up again with some players willing to sit out a year, if possible, because they don't want to be here anymore.
Yeah, and that's a scenario that nobody wants to see around here. I don't do a lot with the questions in the YouTube chat room, Scott, but Craig Nadler, I believe it's pronounced, last week, I believe you both said Brian had made changes and was calling a good game. Was that not true when you said that? Don't we need to see where things are after Wisconsin? I'm not sure we were all in Brian's corner. I know me specifically, I pointed out some play calls and some formations, some stacked receivers, some misdirects. I think there have been some wrinkles and adjustments this year. I just don't think there have been enough. And it was exposed last week. And now that you're playing programs in the Big Ten that are familiar with what you're doing, that makes it even more imperative that you get out of tendencies and open up your playbook a little bit more. And you should be able to. Your players should be more comfortable as we get through a third of the season to be able to handle more.
Yeah, and I'm not going to walk back my comments. I thought that he did play, did call a good game against Western Michigan. I did see changes in the running game and the fact that they were deciding to go more counter and more gap as opposed to zone. And I thought it worked better for this team. And obviously we saw a lot of good running against Western Michigan. Now, it's Western Michigan. So you got to take
and they're missing two of they were against Western as well, but I mean it matters that Jazzion Patterson and Caleb Johnson are out. It does matter.
Yeah, I guess where my feelings have changed, or at least my opinion has been altered by the circumstances, is that your expectation is when you lose the best offensive player on your roster in Luke Lachey, that you better make better use of the other players on your offensive roster. And that is at wide receiver. No offense to, again, like you said, Rob, Steve Stylianos or Addison Ostrenga. They could very well be, impactful players. And I agree that they probably are. But get your receivers more involved. And when you start to look at the cumulative of, wow, only, 35 targets in 4 games for your receivers? Only 14 catches? Come on,
I encourage folks to read Scott's article from yesterday on The Athletic too. He's got the receipts, so to speak. So check that out on wide receiver usage. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
That was a little promo there.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. It's still $1 offer for the next 2 days.
Hit it. I'm reading about my Jets now. I get to read about the Jets on The Athletic.
I'm sorry. Our the excitement of our pro football teams have just went right. 4 plays for you.
Most painful offense to watch: the Jets, the Bears, or Iowa.
Yes.
Yes, is a good answer. This is the correct answer.
The correct answer is yes. I mean, you think about it. Well, Zach Wilson is. You want to get really kind of feisty.
He's got an Iowa history.
I know.
Too.
I was just say his Iowa's coming out. That's what people could really be mean about. But alas, no. I mean, I do think they perform well this week. I do. And if they don't, then it's going to, at some point, I try to be pretty balanced in my perspective on Iowa football, especially. And hey, but look at the cumulative of Kirk Ferentz's career, the wins, everything else like that. If they continue to go down this path offensively, the same schematics, the same approach, then everybody who has criticized them and called for Brian's head is completely justified. And if it doesn't change, then something has to change. And you could be looking at some changes that they're not, I don't know. I just think that let's be careful that it's not a kingdom. They always talk about traveling trophies that you rent them for a year. This is Kirk Ferentz's career. This is his job. He's been there 25 years, but somebody else is going to coach after him. And somebody else coached before him. So he's kind of renting that position. Might want to start thinking about changing some things up.
He wouldn't listen to me, Scott. I know that, but you've secured your legacy as, a successful college football coach. Why not change a little? Why not at this point show people, hey, I can adapt and I can modernize what I do, and our foundation and philosophy is sound. I just need to adjust some things, put my son in a position to succeed, let him do a little bit more, allow my players, trust in them a little bit more, because I think there's sometimes a lack of trust in the players. Just let it hang out at this point. What's he got to lose?
Yeah, no, you're right. Absolutely right. That's a perfect way to put it. Because when you look again at the history of, he's a Hall of Fame coach, one of the greatest to ever do it in Big Ten history. I will fight on that. However, there's a reason why he doesn't get mentioned with Bill Snyder, with Nick Saban or whatever. I mean, Nick Saban's changed. Bill Snyder's an offensive guru, but Nick Saban had the same type of philosophy. and he changed. He decided to get uncomfortable, be comfortable with being uncomfortable, as they say. And Iowa has just, well, we're just going to do it this way, like we're the same high school coach after 30 years. We're still going to run the I formation into the plowing the line. And you've got to, if he can make those changes, and here's the thing, Rob, that kind of baffles me is when things have happened off the field, he has made changes. 2015, the new Kirk, and they went to morning practices. He became a little more open with different things. And what happened in 2020, we can all agree or disagree on it, whether it was enough, but it was a lot, one way or the other. Those types of things have made him able to last and be successful. Why not take that one step with the offense? That's it. You take that step. There's no reason why you can't be a top 3 or 4 or 5 team in the Big Ten every year, even with the newcomers coming in.
And we shall see. These last 8 games of this season, regular season, are fascinating. No matter what transpires, we're going to be entertained and interested. And hopefully that, as Scott has said throughout this podcast, hopefully there continues to be engagement and apathy does not set in, because that would be the worst case scenario. Let's get to picks, Scott, before we get out of here.
Okay.
Give me the bad news.
Yeah, it wasn't your best week, Rob. The week before was pretty good. You were 2-6-1.
Oh, that's bad.
Yeah, we pushed on Rutgers, Michigan, because it was -24 and it was 31-7. But I was 5-3-1, so I had a much.
Good on you.
I had a better week. We both blew Iowa.
Yeah.
And we both blew Nebraska because they only won by 14, and we both blew Indiana, which went into overtime against Akron Wadley.
Did you have Northwestern?
Yes.
Plus the 12? Good on you, because I did not see that coming. Certainly didn't see Northwestern winning.
Yeah. But we both had Notre Dame, which was good. We both had Maryland -7. You took Illinois again, and shame on you.
I'm going down with that ship. I've been going down with that ship. Let's see if I do it again this week.
Yeah, and then I had Wisconsin -6.5. You took Purdue on the road, or at home, I should say. But anyway, I'm 3 now because I won by 3. I'm up by 3, and we got an all Saturday slate now. So we're back. We're into this, and first up is Louisiana at the Mighty Gophers. Minnesota -12.5, Rob.
Yeah, Louisiana is a pretty good program for a group of 5 program. I think people are going to be on that side because of Minnesota losing at Northwestern. So I will go against the grain and throw the points and take Minnesota.
You'll take Minnesota after last week.
I sense the bounce back.
Yeah, I guess I can kind of see that too. It's just weird, the way they've played the last few weeks. You just is there anything left here for the Mighty Gophers, or are they, rolling down the?
If there was ever reason and evidence that the Big Ten needs to do away with divisions, it's this year, because this is bad.
Yeah, no, you're right. All right. I'm gonna go with Minnesota. I was gonna
12 or 12.5.
It's 12.5, but I'm still gonna take the Gophers, and part of that is because Louisiana barely beat Buffalo, who is one of the worst teams in the country. So, the second one, and this cracks me up for a lot of reasons. Penn State -26 at Northwestern. Did you see the tweets from the Penn State reporters?
About the noise?
Yeah, that they no music because they wanted to prepare for the environment.
They should have played like Zamfir, master of the pan flute.
Yeah.
You remember Zamfir, master of the pan flute?
Yes.
Commercials when we were kids?
Yeah, like the wooden
or Enya.
Oh, that's funny.
So it's Penn State. Yeah,
I'm going to take Northwestern.
What's it, 26, Scott?
26, yeah.
Yeah, give me the points here too. I'll get sucked in by Northwestern.
I mean, there is no question in my mind whatsoever. Penn State is a elite team.
Yeah.
But as we know, going into a place like this,
Sleepy.
yeah. And Northwestern, I'll give them credit. They played hard last week. They won. They came back. They had no reason to do that.
Yeah, that locker room is not lost.
Yeah.
And you worry about that coming to the season. It is not lost. They've done a good job there. And the grass at Ryan Field will probably be 12 inches long.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, Penn State, they haven't mowed it in 2 weeks.
Yeah. That will be, that's always the case. It's like, let's slow them down. And I wonder what Wrigley's grass will be when Iowa's done. Next one is Indiana at Maryland. Maryland -14. I'm still going to take Maryland. They could go 5-0, which would be a really good start for them. If this was a different team than Indiana, like any other team in the Big Ten, I might go the other route. But I think Indiana might be the worst team in the Big Ten.
I might be there with you if it's not the one that Iowa plays this week.
Yeah.
I will. I'm with you. I think the Terrapins. If you want to watch good offense, watch the Terrapins. They play good offense.
Yeah, they got a pretty good quarterback too.
Yep.
Wonder what his completion percentage would be if he was here. Sorry. Michigan at Nebraska. Michigan -18 on the road. I fear saying this. Give me the points. I'll take the Huskers, and I don't think Huskers win, but Huskers +18, I would probably take them.
Do you know which team in the country is number one in rush defense?
Off the top of my head.
It's Nebraska.
Wow.
Their defense is legit, Scott.
Yeah.
They're playing good defense. So I'll take the 18 points too. I don't think they'll win this game, but I think they'll give Michigan some trouble. Its defense will give Michigan some trouble and keep it a relatively close game. But that's one of those games too where you can see a late score by Michigan blowing up that 18, but I'll take it.
Yeah, I can also see 27-10.
Yeah.
Let's hope for that. I will say Nebraska's offense is comparable to Iowa's right now. And if they could get their offense somewhat right, I think we'll invite them into a three-way conversation to the Big Ten West competition. And I know everybody every year, Nebraska, well, Iowa hasn't earned the right to just say it's their fight yet. So Illinois at Purdue, -1.5 for the home Boilermakers on their homecoming. This one's really difficult, by the way.
Give me my Illini, baby. I'm staying on the train.
Illinois, on the Bielema train.
Me and Bert running that, conducting it.
Oh man, I'm with you. I'm freaking out about picking Illinois again for the millionth time, but I'm going to take them. I went against them last week, but I think they can beat Purdue. That's Josh Whitman's hometown. Ryan Walters. There's going to be some interesting dynamics. But this one didn't have a line because of the whole New Jersey thing. Wagner at Rutgers. I guess we'll just pick it straight up.
I'll take a win. I need it.
Yeah.
After last week, I'll take the win.
Right. It's just kind of it's like free parking, a monopoly, and
exactly.
And you put the things in there, the fines in there. Finally, the game that I think is probably, if not the game of the week, one of them, and that's one we cover. And what the latest number you have is 12.5. Is that right? Or I have 11.5 written down. But
let me see what Bet Rivers has real quick.
Yeah.
Talk amongst yourselves. Hopefully it gives me the face recognition here so I can get it.
Yeah. Well, I'll just say that there are two teams on a bye, Ohio State and Wisconsin. And, Ohio State, doesn't have Lou Holtz on its side, but Ohio State has America and the state of Ohio on its side. Wisconsin, however, I'm still unsure what to think. They played pretty well against the Boilers in the second half. But Chaz Malusi, losing him is going to be a big loss for the Badgers. And how are they going to handle that? I don't know.
Bet Rivers has it at 12, Scott. 12
okay.
And 36.5 still. So same as last night, has not moved.
Okay. I wrote down 11.5 earlier this week. So 12 it is. I'm going to take Iowa. I do, basically because I think that they can be better than that, and they should be better than that. Now, if they aren't better than that, there's a problem. But they have struggled at times being a double-digit favorite under Kirk Ferentz. But it's been a while, really, since that's been a big factor. But still, I'll take the Hawkeyes.
I will too. Night game at Kinnick. Atmosphere will be great. And I think Iowa can get out to a good start here, keep the crowd engaged, and take Sparty out of it early.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we picked the same games this week, so we either suck together or mediocre together or awesome together.
Listeners can decide whether they believe in us as a tandem or not, and hopefully I have a bounce back week, and you continue to have a good week, because that means I will have a good week. So.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, well, good luck to you on that.
All right, folks. I think we've run our course here. Hopefully we had a little positive conversation in here, along with the ugly review of last week's game at Penn State. Hopefully next week we have a much more favorable outcome to discuss. And we also have Iowa basketball media days next week too. So we'll start to fold that in, as well as things get crazier and crazier and busier here on the Iowa beat. But thank you everybody for listening. Thank you so much to our sponsors. Again, subscribe to the feed, get a fresh Hawkeye centric podcast every day of the week. And give us some likes too. That always helps if you like us. If you don't like us, then you shouldn't be listening. So anyway, thanks to everybody involved in the podcast, and we will talk to you next week.